I only have one question. Where did it all go wrong? What's up guys, it's Punchy, and today we gotta talk about something that I think needs to be said, and it's kind of a shame. One of my favorite weapons in both design and gameplay, the Railblade, has unfortunately fallen from its spot at the top all the way into the depths of Deepwoken weapons that people don't use. This weapon is very fun, and of course it's super cool too. A lot of people still use this weapon solely because of this, but right now its viability is being questioned by the Deepwoken PvP community, and yeah, they think it's missed. So what's really the issue? Let's start off with one of the biggest complaints I've observed and heard about with this weapon, and it's in regard to the Railblade's swing speed and subsequently its uppercut. With a majority of heavy weapons, you'll see players spam uppercut because it's insane for mixing up players and winning parry trades. The main reason why most heavy players use uppercut so much is because the heavy weapon uppercut has a different swing speed than the actual weapon. Most heavy weapon M1s are so slow and the uppercuts come out much faster, so their enemy has to be ready for two different attacks with two different swing speeds. Basically, in short, most heavy uppercuts come out faster than the actual M1s, and people get confused. The specific problem with Railblade is because of its fast swing speed. By testing this, the uppercuts and M1 swing speed are almost, if not exactly the same speed, making it very easy to parry both attacks because they have the same timing. Instead of having a faster uppercut than the normal attack, they both have a similar swing speed, and that's no good. Since you're essentially stuck to parry trades with this weapon and you don't have a mix-up, you're forced to use the crits, and let's get into that. The Railblade has two different crits, one that's decent and one that's pretty bad. The grounded critical attack allows the user to slam into their target with hyper armor, knocking them down and doing damage. The aerial crit also knocks down players but has a faster startup and shorter range. Let's talk about the bad crit. The ground crit needs to be improved somehow because against good players it essentially does nothing. The windup on this attack is super slow and drawn out, and the actual critical has a very obvious hitbox, so people know when you're gonna crit and when to counter you. The startup of this weapon is so slow, the hyper armor has very little purpose, allowing you to get M1'd once or twice, even hit with a mantra while you're heading towards the target, and that is free damage on you. Most times you'll do a crit and you'll fall down on the ground and faceplant since somebody hits you, and you know, I wouldn't be complaining about this, but you don't really have a good uppercut, so your crit, you know, that's your whole mix-up. The air critical has no visible issues in my opinion, but I do think the damage could be toned down if the Railblade as a whole is improved. Now it's time to move on to my final point. Every single legendary weapon in Deepwoken cannot be enchanted, and why is that? Things like the Curved Blade of Winds or the Crypt Blade cannot be enchanted, but the Railblade also is locked out of these interesting modifiers, and for what reason? Some people will include the Railblade with other weapons when this argument is brought up, but there is a huge key difference between the Railblade and every other legendary weapon. The Curved Blade, Crypt Blade, even the Light's Final Toll, every other legendary weapon scales off some sort of stat besides their initial weapon allocation, or just sometimes abandons even having to use a weapon. You're able to save so many points by leveling up your attunement or stat while using a weapon that scales off something else besides weapon. And it's fair they can't use enchants, and that's what I think. But the Railblade, that's the only legendary weapon in the entire game that entirely scales off the heavy weapon stat. It's basically a heavy weapon with two different crits. I'm not saying it needs enchants, but seriously, why is the most normal legendary weapon the one that's hurt the most by this, downside? To improve this weapon, I think there could be a few things done. Back to our first point, the Railblade could regain its 0.7 swing speed because right now it's too similar to its uppercut speed and does not win parry trades. For the crit, they could reduce the ground crit startup and remove its hyper armor since the crit comes out much faster. It would be easier to hit and more useful in combat, making it less of a meme and easy to avoid. And the final and strangest change would be to give Railblade enchants. Yes, it's a reach, but this is the only legendary weapon that scales off a weapon stat. It's almost a normal weapon. But I wanted to talk about this and was inspired by some friends who use this weapon, and yeah, let me know your thoughts down below and what you think about this weapon and what changes it needs for the future. As always, make sure to like and subscribe because we're almost at 65k subs. Thanks again, it's punchin' time.